Let us make the template first. Take a 10 cm by 12.5 cm paper. Mark it at 3.5 cm from both ends towards the center. Fold the paper on both sides along that point. Apply glue on top of the folded edge and overlap the bottom flap. It should look like this. Cut another piece of paper to the size of this rectangle. You will only need a single layer of paper for this. Fold it into half and draw lines that are 1 cm apart on one side. These will serve as your guide lines. This is the template we are going to make. Fold it in half as the design is symmetric. If you observe carefully, most of the inside edges end or start near the line, joining two corners. So, I folded the rectangle diagonally to easily locate these points. First we will draw the top peak, as its right size is very important for a beautiful snowflake. Mark a point on the third line from right at 1.2 cm. Mark another point just 2 mm towards the left of this point. Draw the line. We will draw the two small peaks at the end, but measure and mark them now itself. Each peak is of 5 mm width. So I just put two dots, 5 mm apart on the same line. Now go towards the left, and start from the base part. Put a mark at 5 mm on the first line and extend it just above the second line. Approximately speaking, thin lines are 5 mm width and the wider ones are of 1 cm width. Keep drawing the parallel lines and their edges as shown using the guidelines, till you reach the points we marked earlier for the two small peaks. All you need to remember is you need little variation. It can be in width, length, or the angle of the edge. Another important aspect to note here is all these lines should touch the edge with at least 1 mm base to them. I will explain more clearly about this point after we cut the actual snowflake uni ties. In this design the first set of parallel lines are drawn at 5 mm apart and almost complete edge is cut at an angle. The second set of parallel lines is about 1 cm width approximately and half of its edge is snipped off, and finally the last set is of similar width with no cuts at the edge. Once you complete drawing these lines as shown, you will be left with the two small peaks. Just freehand draw these peaks like a W. The first peak should be at least 3 mm away from the edge. The second one should be about 5 mm away. Cut out the extra pieces according to the drawing. The lines are easy to cut with scissors, but the inner edges are hard to reach. So, I used a cutter for such cuts, which is easier and gives you a neat output. Here is the clear view of the template for those who want to trace it from the screen. You can lock the mobile canvas using apps like Photocopy and trace it. Now I am starting the process of making the actual snowflake. Take a 10 cm by 12.5 cm wide paper and fold it at 3.5 cm at both sides. Glue the joining. You should join only the flaps and should not glue the center. It should look like this after you glue it. Now turn it over and trace out the template. Here comes the most important part of the process. I mentioned about this earlier about the edges when drawing the template. When we fold the paper it might be a millimeter or two larger or smaller. In that case the template edges might not extend to the end or have a possibility of cutting the complete edge without a joint. Both the cases are not ideal. So you need to ensure that the edges have proper support. We will get there in a minute. I just wanted to show you the cutting part where I used the cutter. I could not film it earlier. Now if we see the sides, these are the attachments I was speaking about. The first set of lines look as if you need to snip off totally and they will have no attachment. But that's not true. You should make sure that they have a 1 mm of joint at least. Not only this fragile joint but also the complete edges are snipped off sometimes if you do not know how to use the template. Usually you trace around the template and snip off all the excess part, but here you need to extend the edges to keep the joint intact. Once you come to the peaks part, you need not worry as there will be no join in this part. I am placing a white paper in this part for clearer view of the joints. Also comparing the cutting with the original template. This helps you understand how each edge is forming the joint and what precaution you should take to keep the joints intact. Especially the smallest one. Please carefully observe them and cut properly, for the snowflake to give you perfect 3D effect. It will not open up properly if these joints are missing. Instead of forming a flower shape, they will stick out like a fragment. Prepare 14 of these units and start gluing them one by one as shown. Apply a thin line of glue. Keep checking the snowflake after gluing few pieces to see if any other top corners are struck accidentally. Since the top part is narrow, there are high chances of this happening. You need to separate them when the glue is still wet. Look at those pretty shapes forming as you join. Also, try to place the units right above one another in a single go, as adjusting them will also spread the glue. These are the joints I was worried about earlier, and see where they are in the finished piece and what kind of look they give. Snowflake templates have been a mystery for many, because at the end, they transform to something that seems beyond imagination. Hope this slow tutorial helped you in understanding the template making part. You can now try making your own template designs based on this knowledge. Here comes our pretty snowflake. After gluing the last part, hold it for a minute in place and then also ensure the base is also well adhered.